Well, the 2018 Stanley Cup finalists both get eliminated in 5 games in round 2 in the 2025 playoffs. In today's offseason preview series video, we're looking at the Golden Knights and the Washington Capitals, as both teams, the Caps who won the East, the Knights who won the Pacific, have both been eliminated in round 2. We'll get to all the updates when it comes to Vegas and Washington coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to with all of you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below and don't forget to leave a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts on all the discussed in today's video. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. And don't forget to stay tuned for my June 27th, June 28th, and July 1st live stream, so don't forget to stay tuned for that. But in today's video, we've got another off-season preview video here to discuss. In today's video, we're looking at the two teams who went to the 2018 Stanley Cup final. That's the Washington Capitals and the Vegas Golden Knights. These two teams were top 3 points-wise in the NHL this regular season. The Knights were down 2-1 in their first round series, but stormed back with 3 straight victories, beat the Minnesota Wild in 6, while the Capitals won the first and last 2 games of the series and took down the Montreal Canadiens in 5 games 4-1. So both teams had pretty solid first rounds, but in the second round, both these teams really did not have any answers. The Capitals lost game 1, won game 2, and then lost 3 straight to lose the series in 5 games. Well, the Knights lost the first 2 games, won game 3, and then lost the next 2 games to lose in 5 games to Edmonton. So very interesting note there. So we're going to look at both these two teams as we usually do in these off-season preview videos. We're going to start with Vegas. They were eliminated 1 day earlier than the Washington Capitals, so we'll start with the Knights first. So Vegas finished the year with a record of 50, 22, and 10. That's good enough for 110 points. It was third in the NHL, only behind the Caps and the Jets. So the Knights had another fantastic regular season, as we just talked about. They won the first game against Minnesota, lost the next 2, but then won the next 3. Beat the Wild in 6 games. They advanced past round 1 for the first time since 2 years ago when they won the Cup. And then they faced the Edmonton Oilers, and it was just not their day. They wound up losing in come from behind fashion, 4-2 to Edmonton in game 1. They lost in overtime in game 2, had a buzzer beater in game 3 to get them at least on the board, but then got shut out in both games 4 and game 5 to lose in 5 games to the Edmonton Oilers and bow out to the team who would eventually go and represent the West in the Stanley Cup final. So very interesting note there, but the Knights just did not have what in them to beat the Edmonton Oilers. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to their goal and point scoring leaders in the regular and postseason for the Vegas Golden Knights. So in the regular season, Jack Eichel led the team with 94 points. It was Vegas' first ever 90-plus point player in their entire franchise history. They never had a guy hit over 90 points, so it was very interesting note there. Well, Stone had 67 and Hurdle had 61, so as much as Eichel had a really great season, you want to see him have at least a little bit better offensive point totals for some of the other guys. Stone and Hurdle are all right, but didn't have too many guys hit over 50 or 40 points, so very interesting note there. When it comes to their goal scoring, Pavel Dorofeyev was the team's leader in the regular season with 35, while Hurdle had 32, and Eichel had 28. So they had a couple of 30-plus goal scorers, but still not as much as you want to see them have. So on the points and goal scoring side, in the postseason, Eichel led the team with 10 points. Stone was second with 8. Carlson and Pietrangelo both had 6. So, of course, given the fact they're in the second round, they did a lot better than some of those other teams. But even teams like St. Louis and Los Angeles had their leading point scorers the same amount as Vegas's. So that showed you some of their offensive troubles in the postseason. Well, Mark Stone was the only goal scorer on that team to have 4 goals. And then Riley Smith, William Karlsson, Tomas Hertl, and Brett Howden all had 3 goals. So definitely had a couple of 3-goal scorers, and they had a lot of good spread out goal scoring production, but it was just not enough to get them past the Edmonton Oilers. So very interesting note there, but those are their point and goal scoring leaders. Going over to their advanced stats, in the regular season they had 274 goals for, which was 5th in the NHL, 214 goals against, which was 3rd in the NHL, a 28.3% power play, which was 2nd in the NHL, and a 75.7 penalty kill unit, which was 26th in the NHL. So offensive-wise, they were a top 5 unit. Defensive-wise, they were a top 3 unit. Power play-wise, they were top 2 in the league. So offensively, defensively, on the power play, Vegas clicked all season long. Penalty kill was really their only weak spot in the regular season, where they were 26th on the penalty kill. So penalty kill wise was atrocious in the regular season for this Vegas Golden Knights team. If you look at their playoff stats, the power play and penalty kill actually weren't bad in the playoffs. They had an 83.3% penalty kill, ranked 3rd right now in the postseason, and a 25.8% power play unit, which ranks 5th in the NHL. So all in all, their special teams was not a problem for the Vegas Golden Knights. It had a stellar power play and a pretty dang good PK. Their goal scoring and goals against was not good in the postseason though. They had 3.18 goals against, which was 10th in the NHL, and a 2.55 goals for, which was 11th in the NHL. So their strong suits from the regular season: goal scoring, goals against. It was great in the regular season. It faded away in the postseason, and were big reasons why this team was eliminated. It's very interesting to note. This Golden Knights team currently has $9.62 million in cap space for its upcoming offseason. Going over to 3 reasons I think this team was eliminated in the second round. 1, scoring issues. This team faded away when it comes to scoring. Even in their first round series against Minnesota, goal scoring was not a strong suit there for the Golden Knights, and it became very apparent in that Edmonton Oilers series that they would have trouble goal scoring. Like, I think they just averaged around 2 goals in that Edmonton Oilers series, and they weren't the best goal scoring team against Minnesota. So the scoring issues, especially from the big guys not producing, but also the bottom 6 not really doing well, was the first reason I think they were eliminated. The second reason I think this team was eliminated was problems at home. This team had 3 home games in round 2 against the Edmonton Oilers. Did not win a single one of them. They lost 1-0 in overtime, 5-4 in overtime, and 4-2. The team had problems at home. They had a 2-4 record in the postseason at home. They also lost game 2 against Minnesota at home, and they had to win game 5 in overtime to win at home. So they definitely had some problems at home. This team in the Vegas was one of the best home teams in the regular season, and they fell flat in the postseason. It's another big reason. And the third reason, in my opinion, was problems in net. The Knights didn't have the best of goaltendings. Hill was subpar, to say the least. Like, Hill did not do overly great in net for the Vegas Golden Knights. He wasn't the worst goaltender in the playoffs, but it was definitely not one of the better ones, and that's a big reason, in my opinion, as to why the Vegas Golden Knights were eliminated in the postseason. So in my opinion, the scoring problems, the problems at home, and the problems in net were the 3 main reasons, in my opinion, why this Vegas Golden Knights team wound up being eliminated in round 2. Next, going over to their pending UFAs, RFAs, and their draft capital. So when it comes to their pending UFAs, they have a couple of interesting names here. They have Riley Smith, Victor Olofsson, Brendan Saad, Mason Morelli, Tanner Pearson, Tyson Mayo, and Ilya Samsonov. Morelli and Mayo both didn't play at the NHL level this year. The depth players could easily see them wind up walking. You have backup goalie Ilya Samsonov with 16-9-4 record with a 2.82 GAA, 891 save percentage. Not bad numbers, but not great either. He was on a 1-year deal. I could definitely see Vegas walk away from him. You have Tanner Pearson, who had 12 goals and 27 points in 78 games, was a really productive bottom 6 forward, although I do think Vegas might walk away from him. You have Brendan Saad, who had 13 goals and 30 points in 72 games. Victor Olofsson, who had 15 goals and 29 points in 56 games. And Riley Smith, who had 13 goals and 40 points in 79 games. Smith and Saad were in-season acquisitions. All 3 worked out really well in the middle 6. Like, Olofsson was a really good power play guy. Smith fit in really well back with Vegas, and Saad also fit in really well. I would not be surprised if 1 or maybe 2 of those guys were brought back, especially a guy like Riley Smith, but I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 of them wind up leaving, so I'll have to wait and see on that. But that's their UFAs, headlined by Smith, Olofsson, and Saad. When it comes to their RFAs, not a whole bunch here. You have Alex Holtz, Cole Schwind, Raphael Lavoie, Jonas Romberg, Nick Hague, and Lucas Cormier. Cormier didn't play at the NHL level. Lavoie and Romberg didn't have any points at the NHL level. Lavoie played 9 games, Romberg in 13. All are decent depth guys. Would not be one bit surprised if all 3 of those guys were brought back on short-term deals. You have Cole Schwind, who had a goal and 8 points in 42 games for Vegas. Schwind looked like a really good bottom 6 forward. Could definitely see him be brought back. You have Alex Holtz, who had 4 goals and 12 points in 53 games. Holtz had a decent season when he was at the NHL level, so I could definitely see him be brought back. And you have Nick Hague, who had 5 goals and 12 points in 68 games. I don't think he'll be brought back, but I also don't think they'll lose him for nothing. I think they'll probably trade him. But those are some interesting RFAs, headlined by Holtz, Schwind, and Hague. So interesting note there. Going over to the team's draft capital, this team doesn't have an abundance of draft picks, but it definitely has more than teams like the St. Louis Blues and Colorado Avalanche. This team has 6 draft picks for this upcoming season, so a little bit lower than the average team, but not a whole bunch worse for a team who made the playoffs. They have no first round pick, their own second round pick, the Capitals' third round pick, their own fourth, their own fifth, their own and the Capitals' sixth, and no seventh. So they have no first round pick, no seventh round pick at this point in time at least. They have an extra sixth round pick, so very interesting note there. Like, they don't have a whole bunch of top end draft selections, but they do have a couple of decent picks that I think could be used quite wisely this offseason, so very interesting note there. But Vegas has 6 picks for this upcoming draft. And lastly, going over to 5 ways I can see the Vegas Golden Knights improving to get better and be ready for next year, and maybe go a little bit further. Now, first thing I think they have to do is add top 6 for that. As we just talked about, the goal scoring was not there in the postseason. Like, even against Minnesota, but mostly against Edmonton, this team did not have the greatest record offensively, and there definitely was a problem for them in the playoffs. So I think adding a top 6 forward, whether that be going out acquiring a top end guy like a Ziegler, a Kreider, or someone like that, or going out for agency, going after a guy like Marner or Besser, who they've been linked to heavily. I don't know exactly which route they'll go, but adding a top 6 forward has to be priority number 1 in my opinion for Vegas. Priority number 2, move Nick Hague. Hague is a pending RFA. He's been a really solid defender for the Vegas Golden Knights, was basically their best draft selection that has been able to play for this team. Like, they had Glass, Brandstrom, Suzuki. They traded all of those guys. Hague, who was the first ever second round pick, has been a very fantastic defensive player there for the Knights, but I think he's just going to cost them too much at this point, and they already have such a lethal blue line and younger players coming up that they're going to have some space on the blue line. So I think moving Hague instead of extending him is going to be priority number 2. Priority number 3 is giving Jack Eichel an extension. He is eligible to be extended this offseason. Would not be one bit surprised if in early July we heard him be extended. Like, Eichel has been a very fantastic top line center for this Vegas Golden Knights team. Just this season, he was able to hit the 90-point plateau, the first Knight player to ever do so. So given how well of a top line center he's been and how good of an addition he's been for the Vegas Golden Knights, I think extending Eichel has to be priority number 3. Priority number 4 has to be figure out who the backup will be. Do they try and bring back Samsonov? Do they have Akira Schmid, who was the third stringer this year, be the backup? Do they go out on free agency and try and find a backup? Like, they have to figure out who the heck is going to be the backup to Aiden Hill this year. Like, I don't know exactly who's going to be the backup, but I definitely think figuring that out is priority number 4. And priority number 5 is add some bottom 6 help. Even though I think they need to add some top 6 help, the bottom 6 was not overly great. The Knights don't have a whole bunch of cap space this offseason, so I think making some smaller, lower end signings with guys who could definitely play in that bottom 6 role, sort of like a Tanner Pearson, who almost had 30 points this year in a bottom 6 role. I could see similar signings for that for Vegas this offseason, especially if they were to lose some of those guys like Pearson, Olsen, Smith, or Saad. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. No guarantees of what happens there, but I think those are 5 ways, in my opinion, Vegas could improve this offseason to maybe go further next year, maybe make it to round 3 or the Stanley Cup final next year. I think they need to add top 6 forward, move Hague, extend Eichel, find out who the backup is, and add some bottom 6 help. So that's my opinion on Vegas. Next, going over to the Washington Capitals. Now, when it comes to the Washington Capitals, they had 1 more point in the regular season than the Vegas Golden Knights. They had a 51-22-9 record for 111 points. They won the Eastern Conference. They were the second best team in the NHL. They had a really good season. Round 1 was a really good stretch for them. They ended up winning the first 2 games in Washington against the Montreal Canadiens. They lost game 3, but then came back and won game 4 to take a 3-1 series lead, and then they won game 5 to end the series in Washington. So it was very good stuff there, but then that all came crashing to a halt against Carolina. They lost game 1 in overtime, but then won game 2 was a very tight series, and then Carolina took over, won 3 straight, 2 in Carolina, 1 in Washington, ended the series in 5 games. So even though they were the best team in the Eastern Conference and one of the Stanley Cup favorites, over in the Washington Capitals only won 5 games in the postseason this year, so very interesting note there for the Caps. If you look at their goal scoring and point scoring leaders for the regular season and the postseason, regular season, Strome led the team with 82 points, Ovechkin was second with 73, and Pierre-Luc Dubois, Protas, both had 66 points this year. So very interesting note there. Protas had a breakout season, Dubois fit in really well, and Strome and Ovechkin were once again one of the top players on the Washington Capitals. Goal scoring wise, Ovechkin hit 44 goals, including breaking Wayne Gretzky's goal record. So very interesting note there, as he hit 44 goals, while Tom Wilson had 33 goals, and Alexei Protas had 30 goals. So Protas is turning into one heck of a lethal player, and Wilson had another solid season goal scoring wise. So I don't think there's too many surprises besides maybe Protas and Pierre-Luc Dubois on the goal-scoring side. When it comes to the playoffs, Strome led the team with 11 points in 10 games, so he was over a point per game. Strome was fantastic. Tom Wilson had 7 points, while Beauvillier, McMichael, and Ovechkin all had 6 points. Very interesting note there. Strome, Wilson once again leading this team. Ovechkin having 6 is not too surprising, so very interesting note there. Well, Ovechkin led the team in the playoffs with 5 goals, a whole bunch better than the year prior when he had no points in that sweep against the Rangers. McMichael had 4 goals, and Dume, Chychrun, and Wilson all had 3 goals. So even comparing to a team like the Vegas Golden Knights, the Capitals, who actually played in less games, had more goal scorers. So very interesting note there. But Ovechkin once again led this team both in the regular season and the postseason in goal scoring, which is very interesting to see given the fact he's almost 40 years old. When you go over to some of their advanced stats, the Capitals had 286 goals for, which was second in the NHL, 229 goals against, which was tied for 8th in the NHL, 23.5% power play, which was tied for 13th in the NHL, and an 82% PK, which was tied for 4th in the NHL. So all in all, team looked really good. They had a top 2 offense, they had a top half defense, they had a top half power play, but they also had a top 5 penalty kill. So penalty kill wise, they were great. Goal scoring wise, they were great. They were a pretty dang good team defensive wise as well. And while their power play wasn't the best and wasn't in the top 10, it was still a pretty dang good unit in the regular season. So very interesting note there. When you go over to the goal scoring side in the postseason, they had 2.5 goals for per game, which was tied for 12th in the NHL in the postseason. They had 2.70 goals against, which was actually 3rd. They had 17.9% power play, which was 13th, and a 71.4% penalty kill, which was 11th. So they were in the bottom half when it comes to power play. They're in the bottom half when it comes to penalty kill. They're in the bottom half when it comes to goal scoring. Their only real strong suit in the postseason was their defense, which was stellar. So very interesting note there, but the defense was really the one lone bright spot in the postseason for the Capitals. This Capitals team currently has $28.42 million in cap space for this upcoming season. 3 reasons I think this team was eliminated. 1, the offense. It was one of their strong suits in the regular season. They had the 2nd best offensive units in the entire regular season. But in the postseason, it can crash into a halt. Against Montreal, they were able to do pretty much quite well 5-on-5. They weren't the highest goal scoring team, but they weren't one of the lowest ones either. But especially when it came to the Carolina Hurricanes, they could barely muster any offense whatsoever, and the barely being able to muster any offense against the Carolina Hurricanes was a major reason in my opinion as to why this team was eliminated in round 2. The second one was road problems. This team did not have great road record this offseason. Like, they had 4 games on the road. They lost 3 of them, and they were almost going to lose that 4th one had not been for Tom Wilson's big hit and the changing of the tide in game 4 against Montreal. So this Capitals team did not have a really great road record in the postseason, going 1-3, and that's another big reason. You need to win on the road if you're going to have it in the playoffs. Just ask the Winnipeg Jets, and they weren't able to, except for that one game. That was a big reason as to why this team was eliminated in round 2. And the third one was subpar special teams. Like, their special teams, which was pretty much a strong suit in the regular season. Their power play wasn't overly great, but it was average, and their penalty kill was a top 5 unit. And both those things came crashing to a halt, especially against the Carolina Hurricanes. And even in the Montreal series, like, Montreal's power play walked all over them. So all in all, those penalty kill and power play was not strong suit in the postseason, and another reason as to why they were eliminated in round 2. So in my opinion, the offensive problems, the road problems, and their subpar special teams were the 3 main reasons, in my opinion, this team got bounced in round 2. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to the pending UFAs, the pending RFAs, and their draft capital for this upcoming offseason. When you look at their UFAs, there's actually quite a bit here. They have Anthony Beauvillier, Andrew Mangiapane, Tyler Radish, Lars Eller, Michael Scarbosa, Luke Phillip, Ethan Bear, and Chase Prisky. Phillip, Bear, and Prisky all didn't play at the NHL level this year. Could see most of those guys probably wind up walking. You have Michael Scarbosa, who had a goal and 2 points in 3 games. Decent depth guy. Wouldn't be surprised if he walked. You have Lars Eller, who had 10 goals and 22 points in 80 games. Anthony Beauvillier, who had 15 goals and 25 points in 81 games. Both were deadline acquisitions. Both worked out pretty well, but I wouldn't be surprised if they both left. Maybe Eller's a little bit more likely to come back than Beauvillier. You have Mangiapane, who had 14 goals and 28 points in 81 games, and Radish, who had 7 goals and 27 points in 80 games. Both were decent guys, but they were both bottom 6 forwards I think could wind up walking, so very interesting note there. When it comes to the RFA side, you have Lapierre, Rybinski, Alexiev, and Gibson. Alexiev got into 8 games, but the other two didn't, and none of them had any points in the NHL level. I could see Alexiev and Gibson, maybe even Rybinski, all be brought back on short-term deals, while Hendrix Lapierre had 8 assists in 27 games. He was a first-round pick a couple of years back. I still think could be an effective forward at the NHL level, so I could definitely see him be brought back, but those are the RFAs, headlined by Lapierre. When I go over to their draft capital, this Capitals team, they don't have an overabundance of draft picks, but once again, it's not as worse as teams like Colorado and St. Louis. They currently have 5 draft selections for this upcoming offseason. Once again, could wind up changing before the draft actually happens, but the Caps have their own first rounder, the Bruins second, the Canes third, their own fourth, and their own fifth. They have no 6th, no 7th round picks, so don't have some of the lower end draft selections, but they do have a couple of high ones, especially their first round pick, which is something a couple of those teams to make the playoffs don't have, so very interesting note there. And while it's not a great amount, and not as much as you expect an average team to have, they still do have quite a bit of draft capital, so very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to 5 ways I think this team can improve in the offseason to get better for next year. The first thing that they should do is consider moving some of their defensemen, including Fehrvary and Martin Fehrvary. Both those guys are making quite a bit of money. TVR thinks they're making $3 million. Fehrvary is making just over $2.5 million. And I think both those guys could be trade bait for the Capitals. I think those two are probably the biggest trade chips for the Washington Capitals. So I'm not going to say it's a guarantee either of those guys can move, but if they did want to try and free up some cap space, I think those are 2 guys to do it with. The second thing I think this team needs to do is add some bottom 6 help. The bottom 6, while did all right, was not overly great in the postseason and definitely against the Carolina Hurricanes. So I think changing up the bottom 6 might make some sense for the Capitals, especially if guys like Beauvillier, Eller, and Mangiapane all leave in the offseason. So I definitely think changing up that bottom 6, adding some more bottom 6 help will make some sense for the Caps. Third thing I think this team needs to do is add a solid top 6 forward. They have some pretty good players. They have Protas, Dubois, Strome, they still have Ovechkin for another season, but I think adding another top-end level talent to this team would not be too surprising in my opinion. Ehlers might be a solid fit in my opinion for the Washington Capitals in that top 6, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. The Caps do have some draft capital too to maybe make some sort of a big trade, but I definitely think adding a top 6 forward would be a smart move there for Washington. The fourth thing I think they should do this offseason is give some of the younger prospects a chance at the NHL level. Suzdalev, Miroshnichenko, Cristal on the forward group, and Chesney on the blue line. I think all deserve a shot at the NHL level. I think all of them could be very close to being NHL ready by training camp, and I think all of them should have a very good shot at making the NHL roster. So once again, it's more of a training camp issue, but definitely think that's a priority there for the Caps. And the fifth thing I think is add some defensive depth, especially if they do move Fehrvary or Martin Fehrvary. I think adding some cheaper end defensive players to maybe sort of round out that blue line I think will be very smart for the Capitals. They're not like they're losing a whole bunch of solid defensive players in free agency, but I definitely think maybe adding 1 to 2 guys who can play third pair minutes, who can maybe challenge for roster spots, wouldn't be a bad move there for the Capitals just to try and add some more defensive depth. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but in my opinion, considering moving Fehrvary or Fehrvary, adding some bottom 6 help and getting a top 6 forward, giving some of the younger players a chance, and adding some defensive depth, there are 5 ways I can see this Washington Capitals team improve in the offseason to maybe get better, and maybe they can go to a Stanley Cup final or a conference final next year. So we're going to wait and see on that, but that's my opinion on the Caps. That's my opinion on the Knights. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Those are their stats. Are you surprised by any of them? And what do you think these 2 teams need to do in the offseason to get better and maybe make it farther next year? Definitely love to hear your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Remember to like this video, and for that, remember to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to stay tuned for my June 27th, 28th, and July 1st live stream videos. Also the blog, Topic News, Rumors, Analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link to that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.